So we're back on myleadertude.com. We're teaching leadership in today's world. What does it take to be a leader? And one of the things that has changed is knowing how to lead yourself and own your shitty ass past. You gotta own your shitty past. You know, the old school way of leadership was, you know, you had shirt and tie, full suit. You led by example. You know, the kind of guy who had sex, you pictured having sex in a missionary position his whole life. And they portrayed themselves that way, but in reality, it never was the case. But let's face it, that's bullshit. In the information world, when I was growing up, I drank, I smoked, I might even try a little bit of weed, and maybe even a little bit of recreational drugs. But guess what? I didn't have Snapchat and Twitter and all those things that puts all those vices out there. And most leaders are going to have a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality. We're risk takers in general. That's why we're going to end up in this information age. There's probably a good chance you'll end up with some dirt on you, and you have to own it. And let's face it, this isn't something new. I mean, are we naive enough to think that JFK only stuck his dick in Jackie O and Marilyn Monroe? Come on, the maids, everybody. It's just they didn't have social media, they didn't have TMZ, they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have photos. They had ways of covering things up, and it was a time where you didn't have to worry about that. Risk takers end up leaders. In fact, you know, I'd probably say today, right now, a future 500 CEO of a 500 company is probably sitting on YouTube, smoking a blunt, blowing smoke rings, eating a frickin' Tide Pod right now. Why? Because leaders are risk takers, and risk takers end up leaders. So what the fuck are we gonna do? You gotta own it. You have to own your past. At some point in your life, you're going to have to replace the risky behavior in your personal life for risky behavior in business, because leaders take risks. And the same personality that made you stick that bottle rocket in your ass so you can get 1,000 likes on YouTube, that's the same personality that's going to make you end up a leader. Why? Because only a few people would have the balls to stick a bottle rocket in their ass. And only a few people have what it takes to take risks in business. You know, leaders believe, and listen to this, leaders believe that rules are made for the lowest common denominator. In other words, they're made for the rest of everybody else. Red lights, no one's around, they run them. Pot's illegal, you know, but it never killed anybody, I'm going to try it. You know, those things are going to happen, but you have to protect it and own it. And, yeah, you got to know that now. There's so much competition out there. And that person sitting next to you applying for that same position, that person under you, they might have the same DUI, they just had a better lawyer. But you better own it, and you better be in front of it. And you need to own your past and know that we live in an accepting society. People care about what you have to do now and the decisions you're going to make for them now, not what you made in the past, as long as you don't make them again. So society no longer cares what you did yesterday. They care about today. That being said, there's no grittier position than that of leader. Know that you need to move on before you move up, before you take those positions. Because when you're leading other people, I mentioned that people care about what happened yesterday or today and what you're going to do for them today, not yesterday. But if you make the same mistakes today you made yesterday, it's over. Forget about it. So you have to own whatever vice that you have, whatever thing that you had in the past. You better be past it before you take a leadership position. You're a fool if you believe that people below you aren't gunning for your job. And when you have to hold them accountable, it'll come up. And you have to find current past flaws. They'll try and find your current and past flaws to fuck you over. That's why you need to own it, acknowledge it, and be ahead of it. If you're a leader, you need to own your past, you need to acknowledge your past, and you need to be ahead of your past. Use your stories of the past to talk about what you learned and how it taught you lessons so that you don't have to wait for it to come out later and play defense. Because it will come out. It always does in a leadership position. The higher you go, the less you can hide. It doesn't matter what kind of team you have. It doesn't matter the synergy. None of that matters. Because if you're a good leader, at some point in time, you're going to have to hold people accountable. And you do not want them to have bullets in the gun to fire right at your fucking head. Because they will. When people will always lash out before they lash in and do the job they're supposed to do. And if you're trying to make people greater than they are, it'll make them uncomfortable. You may have to fire people, or if they can't reach their potential or won't reach their potential, it'll come down to you or them. And believe me, they're like a raccoon huddled in a corner, and they're going to lash out and use everything they have. And if you haven't already owned it, if you're not ahead of it, you will be taken down. So own your past. Know that everybody you now has one. They have something, and it's probably going to come out. So don't hide from it. Own it. Be in front of it. And be a leader in 2017.